third of these little video messages. You can probably track the path of them by the growth of my hair and how wild it seems to be becoming. We stand on the very eve of stepping into Holy Week, and having expected to be back in Christchurch this year, having been forced out last year by the building works, it seems so peculiar not to be in there now. Peculiar, but equally somewhat extraordinary to think of us being scattered across the community where we live. It is quite literally a web and a net of prayer, cast over, laced through and tied around those we know, those we love, those whom we live amongst, those whom we fought with, those we struggle with, the whole thing. It's all wrapped in and around it all. So what better week to appreciate that and take that to heart. Within these last couple of days, a couple of particular readings have been brought back to my attention. The first is this, the peculiar piece from Ecclesiastes. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. It's well known, but I do always find it somewhat peculiar. And unsurprisingly, given its subject matter, every time you read it, it seems to fit, it seems appropriate, but equally a different part of it will step forward, stand out. And this time, for me, it has to be a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Never has that line for me been the one that seemed so bold, so apposite, so bittersweet to bear. Another reading which came to mind is from the letter to the Hebrews. Let mutual love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing that some have entertained angels without knowing it. Remember those who are in prison as though you were in prison, those who are being tortured as though you were being tortured. And from there we could add on many such situations of people out beyond our own walls who are in a similar or even exactly the same position as us. It is perhaps, I think, worth remembering, because I find it is so easy within my own walls, even with my own family, to remember that we are all doing this. We're all bearing this and doing so in similar and yet unique ways, pertinent to each of us, which does mean that we are not alone, because we undertake it together. Now I know all of these are truisms, all of these are those muddles of thoughts that are in our own heads, so it may be these are of no interest or benefit to you at all. But as I sit here and muse, what came to mind was how they are relevant to me, and therefore might be to you. And at the end of the reading from that portion of Hebrews came this: do not neglect to do good and to share what you have. For such sacrifices are pleasing to God. And when share what we have fully and entirely becomes not our possessions, our things, our money or our goods, but ourselves, our thoughts, our prayers, our commitment, and even our isolation from one another. When sharing what we have and doing good becomes purely a giving of ourselves and a doing what we can, however much or however little that may feel, then we do something that is not only pleasing to God, but is quite evidently transformative to the world, and therefore also to us. So from where I sit, at this computer all too often, or by the phone, and within these walls, I do realise just how much you are all doing. I hear of it, I receive messages about it, I receive people offering thanks for it, because they don't know quite how else to say it, so they say it to me that I may pass it on. So I do, here. And now, for once, I entirely know how St. Paul feels in his letters when he says, "How much I yearn to come to you, to be with you, to express this to you in person. And yet as I cannot, I do it like this." He wrote it and sent it. I say it and seek to send it. Very genuinely, as we stand at the threshold of Holy Week, as we sit and stand within our own homes across this community wide, very genuinely may I express the thanks and appreciation of so very many for everything that you are doing, individually and directly you. You may not feel it is much. You may not have gone beyond your own walls. But what you are doing and what you are offering, the good you are giving and what you are sharing is pleasing many. And in doing this, we realize that in all this, Christ is right here with us and right there with you and here with me. Let's step into Holy Week. Let's delight in it, pray it, live it like never before, and journey to Easter. Amen. God bless.